So good evening and welcome to our IABC Queensland October event. My name is Alicia Sutherland and I'm the president. On behalf of IABC Queensland, not the president of, Australia or the world or anything like that, but on behalf of the IABC Queensland board, it's great to have you all with us tonight. I'd like to extend a special warm welcome to any of our IABC Queensland members that are with us, and I know there's quite a few of you. But for those who aren't members yet, I just wanted to quickly introduce who we are as the International Association of Business Communicators. So IABC is a vibrant global association representing communications professionals, and we're all about creating connection. And with what's been happening across the globe this year, professional communicators have never been more relevant than right now. IABC boasts many thousands of professionals in chapters around the world, and we support our community with innovative thinking, shared best practices, in-depth learning, and career guidance. We attract a broad range of professional communicators in Brisbane and Queensland, like all of you, and from further afield. And if you haven't already, we'd love for you to join us. And there's never been a better time than now, because October is actually member month for IABC, and basically it's a discount of around 40%, and it comes to under $200, which is obviously a fantastic offer on our standard professional fees for a year. So anyone that's interested in joining, there's so many benefits of membership, and we'd really like you to come on board. If you want to find out more about that, just go to iabc.com, click on the Join Now button or log into your account and enter the code IABC50 to get this special offer. But now back to tonight's speaker. So organisations today have an insatiable appetite for data. But are we using it effectively? And are we even asking the right questions? And once we've got that data, what do we do with it to help us find the answers we need? So Amanda Newbery from Articulus ran the largest community engagement program in the Southern Hemisphere for Brisbane City Council. The Plan Your Brisbane project received 114,000 contributions from the community spread across 28 varied activities. So an absolutely huge project. Amanda is a master of engagement data and analysis, having built everything from customized dashboards for live insights to live heat maps and a range of other analysis tools for large, complex, and sometimes controversial programs. Amanda is also an IAP2 trainer and was the inaugural chair of the Smart Cities Council of Australia and New Zealand's Centre for Civic Innovation. She's also a non-executive director of a data and information management company, GWI. And you might also recognise her, or at least her voice, from ABC Radio's Hidden Persuaders program. And tonight, I am delighted that Amanda is going to add to her list of incredible accomplishments being an IABC Queensland presenter by joining us. We're all hungry for data, and to help us to better understand how to extract the value we need, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Amanda Newbery.
Yay. Oh, I just deserve a clap. That's like, you should have your own podcast. Seriously, you need a podcast. That was impressive. And of course, now I have to follow in those giant shoes. I will not be as polished, but I'll try to be entertaining. And so I'm going to share some slides with you. We're going to get our hands dirty in data, and you're going to do some stuff, and then I'm going to give you some tools and things. But just to kind of whet the appetite, and this way you can look at the screen rather than me the whole time. My question is this. Why are we hungry for data? So we talk about being hungry for data, but the question is why? And is it because it's there? Is it because we can get data? Or actually, is it because we're looking for something else? And so I suspect part of the reason that we really have this fascination with data is we try to figure out how to maneuver our way through the world. Now, it might be we've got community groups, Or it could be staff. We might have low staff morale we're trying to overcome, or we could be trying to tackle problems, or we could be trying to understand how to use social media better, for example, with our communities. And part of the reason I think that this topic is so interesting is because there's lots of different types of data. And we'll talk about qualitative and quantitative later, but actually I think it comes down to something a little more interesting and fundamental, which is this. So often when we look at data, we're looking at different sets of data. And so sort of the first chunk of it really is to look at historical data. So that's, what did people do in the past, or what do we know about the past? That could be anything. It could be community comments. It could be the way in which people used digital media. It could be how they maneuvered through a city. What's happening now is the real-time data. That's where we get live data. Some of that is available as open data sets from government agencies in particular, but it tells us what people are doing now. So it tells us what they're spending, where they're moving, how they're acting, and it's really exciting to kind of get that, which is fine. It tells us about yesterday and it tells us about today. What it doesn't tell us is about what might happen in the future. And I think this bit is the really exciting bit for those of us who work in change management, or those of us who work in community and stakeholder engagement, or those of us who do engagement with people and staff. And this is the unknown data. It's the bit that gets revealed to us. And it tells us what we might want, but also what we might do and what we prefer. And that's a harder sort of set of data to understand. And so, because there's just so much data, I think it comes down to a bit of a choice. And it comes down to a choice for me between time versus quality and the imperative desire to sleep. And I'm very fond of sleeping, but sometimes our clients are not so fond of us sleeping. And so this will reveal itself a little later when I put you through your paces and you go, oh my God, this is ridiculous, the amount of time. And that is because it's time, quality, and sleep. And part of the problem that we have is that data is just a really hard nut to crack, if we're honest. It's a hard thing to do. And so to illustrate this, I just want to show you a couple of stats. So if I said to you, 26% of people strongly supported the option, you got some picture, haven't you? You're reading that, you go, okay. If I told you that 64% of people oppose the option, it changes the nature of that 26 who support it. There's not that many stuck in the neutral zone. But if I told you that of that 64%, we have 17% who oppose it, but actually 47% strongly oppose the option, it's starting to paint a really different picture. And if I said to you, that's based on 100 responses, you might then start to question the nature of how important that data is, depending on the size of the potential audience. If you have a staff of 100 people, well, the 100 responses are going to be pretty important. If you have a community of 1 million people, I don't know that 100 cuts it. It's not representative, not even close. So what if I told you that of the 100 responses, they were from an online survey with 5 questions? And finally, what if I said that of those statistics, the real purpose of the engagement and the communications program was actually to spark new ideas, and it was to bring people together and to build relationships and trust? You would have to then start thinking, is there any real value in knowing the numbers of for and against an option? Yeah, it doesn't feel right, does it? It feels easy. Like, it feels really easy. I can pop a survey out in 5 minutes and I can gather that quantitative data. It takes no time at all, but it doesn't serve a purpose for me. It doesn't make my life easy. And I do get to do, cute little numbers in red and green. And so what I want you to do is to think about this concept of how we're going to manage data, but I'm going to get you to do it with me. And so I'm going to ask you to jump in. Now I'm going to do this in 2 ways for you. Oh no, you're pretty bright people. I'm going to trust you to look at the screen, okay? So, okay. So if you were to go, don't copy that one, copy this one. If you open up a phone or a browser, I just want you to type in www.menti.com and then you will enter in a code. And the code is 892191. So if you're having trouble, I'll get you to pop something in chat if you can't find your way in. And Bernard, who works with me, who also worked on Planning Brisbane, he is not only, you know, looking guru-like there with your mood lighting, Bernard, but he's actually the really smart one in our office. He actually is a data dude. And more than that, he's very digital. So he can help you. So when you jump in there, you should be able to enter a code and be able to add a response to this. I have, you know, knowing it was IABC, turned off the profanities, but you can write whatever you want, and it is anonymous. And I'm going to show it to you after a little bit. I'm just going to hide it for a bit so as not to have groupthink. And I know I launched straight into it, and while you're doing that, I just a little hello to all my old friends and colleagues who I haven't seen in ages. It's so nice to see you. Anyway. Okay, here we go. Okay, so let's go. Thanks. Thanks, B. So Bernard just popped his details in there if you're having any troubles. He's our saviour. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've got here. So we're going to actually work on this as a little case study during tonight because it's kind of fun and I could find a very acute bubble. And so if Australia was to have a travel bubble with another country, how would we decide where and how this would happen? And so you're adding lots of interesting things in here. This is someone very clever. You're doing sampling, you're doing an assessment, policies, the economy, the show needs to be confident, let our leaders decide, case numbers, and so forth. Okay. So we're getting some good things there. Oh, density, active cases, travel distance. Okay. Now, even though it looks like I don't care about your responses, I do. But I'm also letting myself off the hook because you're going to deal with that a little later. So you can keep typing in there. You can add as many as you want. At some point, we'll lock you out of it to make it easier for you later on. And so what you've done there is an interesting thing, and I'll just share this slide pack with you. When we've been thinking about data, one of the things that I think we need to consider are there are four big questions really. It's four big things that keep me up at night when we're working on a project and there's a sizable amount of data. And that's how I feel at the end of the process. But the first one is, just giving you a question, haven't I? I've given you like a question. You have to deal with this in some way. And the first thing I think is, oh my God, what am I going to do with this data when I'm finished with it? So I haven't thought about that. I've just pounded out that question. I've got no idea, and now I've got to deal with this. The second thing we need to ask ourselves is, are we asking the right questions and using the right method? So I don't even know. I haven't thought about this question. Is it a good one or is it not a good one? Was a live poll a useful method, or should I have actually done something else? Should I have had a little conversation? Should I have prepared you for it? There's a whole lot of stuff that it would have been good to think through. And then I have to think, oh my gosh, what data is more important? If I'm getting lots of data, what is more important? I don't know. I need to sort that out. And then I need to think about the last one, which is, will anyone care? I get to the very end of it and I've got to produce something that is useful to someone, which means I need to pay attention and it needs to resonate with them. And so this is the bit that helps us to kind of work through a process. So if you like, the stages of data. And so some of those questions, I was thinking of the big questions, actually form a part of the engagement design. And the design piece, so whether it's engagement or whether it's a change management process or a communication piece where we're having to collect data for something. So it could be with staff or it could be with our customers. And so we think, well, what is the purpose of my collection? What methods am I going to use? What's the format going to be in? Do I want numbers? Do I want, I don't know, pictures? Do I ask, what are my questions I'm asking? And then we kind of build that design and then we, figure out an implementation plan and what it looks like. And always with the eye to this section here on reporting. So whenever we start here, I'm really thinking about here. And then the second phase is data collection, which is the collection of it, the storage of it, like how long does it take me to do? And then we've got all this raw data and we need to process it. We need to actually organize it and clean it. And I'm going to save you the pain of doing that. And then you're going to pretend that that's happened. And then we're going to think about the data analysis. So how do you analyze what you've got, which is the sense-making piece. And what you're looking for is to find the insights from what it is you've got. So, and then the reporting is, what does it look like in the visualization? And so where you just were was that. We put you smack bang into a process of data collection, and sometimes in our professions, I think we often kind of focus on here, on this. We spend so much time thinking about, oh my God, I've got to get it. I've got to get the numbers. I've got to get, X number of people. So focus on the number, and actually we need to pay more attention to the method design piece, the design bit, the purpose, the goals. What am I trying to achieve from it? That's where we need to spend a lot of attention, because if we stuff that up, everything becomes painful. And then we need to generally allocate more time to processing and analysis. And so, look, I don't know whether we see it through a different lens, but I think where time is often skipped is in here. Often there's no recognition that the data processing piece needs to happen. And so that could be something like, there's lots of spelling mistakes in here, or there's duplications of entries, or I don't really know whether they're in my sphere or not. Like, should we be accepting contributions from people there? I don't know. What do I do with my swear words? What do I do if it comes in a different language? There's a lot of stuff you need to clean up there. And sometimes people don't complete the information that is required. And so what do I do with it? How do I treat that? Is that an accepted contribution or not an accepted contribution? And then how do I justify that I haven't accepted it? And so there's actually a lot of time that goes into this. Bernard could probably speak a lot more about that terrible process than me, but I must say it is it's time consuming. And if you don't do this bit right, the analysis bit becomes incredibly difficult. And so what I'm going to do is not share with you all the secrets yet, because that would be unfair, because I'm going to get you to do it. So I think we are I'm going to show you. Yeah, I am going to show you. So Banana Man, very sneaky. And so something magical has happened whilst I've been talking. So what I'm going to get you to do is I will show you what you're about to do. I'm going to show you in 2 steps. So that's where you were. And you're going to fill out a Miro board. And some of you will be really familiar with Miro, okay? Your board, then we're going to break you into 3 groups. There'll be random groups, and each group 1 will have group 1's set of boards. That's what you're going to work through. And then I'm going to show you how to do this. But essentially, Miro can be pretty confusing if you're not using it all the time. It is super simple if you only do a few little things. And I'm going to show you live, but essentially what you're going to look for when you first go in to the link that I'm going to put in the chat, unless B could do that for me with the password, or Alicia, if you can cut and paste from, because we popped it in before everyone got on.
Yeah, sure.
But, yeah, thanks.
It should still be there, I think.
So this one here is what we're aiming for. It's in the bottom left-hand corner. It's called the Frames button. If you hover over it, it opens up this beautiful menu. It's the contents guide. I never do anything other than go into content. And then you're going to look for your group and you're going to start at step 1 and you're just going to work through each step. And to maneuver up, you just click on it. And so I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and I'm just going to briefly orient you by sharing Miro. What you really want to aim for is no one will care about anything you've done except for the final report. There's a little bit of unallocated time there. We'll give you a heads up. So if you're feeling daunted and you think that's physically impossible, okay, it's trying to replicate. So Danielle's having some problems. I'll get B to sort that out. This is what it's like when you're under pressure to deliver and there's not enough time for analysis or processing of data or reporting of data. And I will share one thing with you is that when the time is not allocated, and when I said there's no sleep, I once did a 34-hour day. It was the most horrible thing and I'll never do it again. It was awful. And I was literally delirious by the end of it. So delirious, I wasn't even dressed properly. It got done, but I'm trying to help you to avoid that whole thing. They might be having a little trouble with one. I think everyone is in there. Yep. So we've just got one. I've put in a tiny URL as well to see if that's made any difference. If not, we can, I can run it live on this screen, B. Okay. All right. So let me just get you into 3 rooms. And just to be clear, there'll be 9 or 10 of you. The way to make this easy is have one person in charge, like with a timekeeper. And it's going to be horrific. Ready? If you are in breakout room 1, you are group 1. If you're breakout room 2, you get it? I'm just like, if you're 1, you're 1, 2, you're 2. When you get lost, I'll pop into the breakout room.
Hey.
Hi, all. How are you going?
Hi, everyone.
Excellent.
Hello.
Alicia, would you like me to lead or would you like me to sit in the background here?
I'd love you to lead, Bernard.
So is everybody in the Miro board? I'll just share my screen so you can see it. So we are in group 2, is it? Is that correct?
No, we're 1.
We're 1.
Aren't we?
Fantastic.
Yeah, 1, I think.
Oh, great. If you do go to the pull out screen, you can. I just put there's like some dots, like little arrows in the bottom. You pull it out. You can actually get like into a like a little bit of a list mode here, which brings up a menu, and you can scroll down and you can go group 1, step 2, which is where we're at. It's probably the fastest way to navigate to where we're supposed to be. Can everybody do that? Mm-hmm. Okay, is everybody on the first board? Okay, so I was helping a lovely lady just before with getting into Miro. So I missed some of Amanda's instructions, but usually what we do at this point is we try and sort out what this data actually means. So the idea is usually trying to group it in some way to think about, what is the same? You've got to sort it out in some fashion. So maybe have a quick little review and have a think. Are there things that are similar here? Like I'm seeing the word active quite a lot. That would appear to be a bit of a theme. What else is other people seeing here in this way?
Economy.
Yeah. So what I'll do now, because this is kind of a cool thing to do, is where did my menu go to? Okay. So we can put what's called a sticky note in. So I'm shrink myself down a bit more, find my menu. Oh, I know what I've done. Switch that off. So we get a little sticky note, we stick it on here, and we can make some notes to ourselves about what actually is going on here. So I'll double click on there. So we see it's all the word economy. Okay, and what we try and do now is we sort of like round up or paraphrase, you know, a bit of a theme. So I see the word economies, but we say, okay, we look at some things. So we look at economic benefit, maybe like his trade, like economic reasoning, who'll be the most dollars for our tourism industry. What else is in here? So it's not just the economy, it might be economic benefit looking at this.
Oh, okay. This one here is consider economic benefits, aim for the best bang for buck.
Yeah.
So is that for the tourist or is that for the Australian tourist?
I've just been skimming, so I'll just point on the board. So you notice here we've got economic reasoning, who'll be most dollars for our tourism industry, the word economy, economic benefits, and you just sort of skim around and you think, okay, what's actually there? Is there anything else that jumps out around in terms of the word economy? So we seem to have a bit of a theme here. Are there other themes that might be you know, emerging here? This idea of low numbers might be something, you know, that could come up. So the other thing we can do with the board is we could actually regroup them. So I just pull a couple and I'll just pull all the economy ones together and let's sort them out. Okay, so we pull them together. We've got a little group of activities now happening. And so we've got this idea of countries with low numbers. Is there anything else in here that says that? You can grab them too. All you have to do is grab a thing and yeah, drag it across. Perfect, that's exactly the idea. It's like using sticky notes on a wall. You know, even this idea of active cases and COVID-safe protocols, even though it's not, it might link to this idea of case numbers and proximity. You know, basically, we're talking about countries that may have some kind of plan, really. So what I'll do is I'll grab this little group down here and we'll start putting them in some kind of order.
How are we going for time too, Bernard?
We're tracking okay. Don't worry, Amanda will call us back in. The trick with this is just to work as hard as you possibly can while you've got the moment to do it.
Exactly. I think this group is on fire from
They
what
are.
I'm witnessing here.
We've been using this for a big mental health strategy, literally just in the last couple of weeks in Western Queensland. We had a consortium of 35 odd CEOs doing this, and we were going through literally 102 actions like this, sorting them out in this exact fashion. And you can imagine the virtual sweat that was pouring off people's brows as they did that. It was quite, they certainly work hard. Trying to think else. So often what I like to do is, you know, for example, this one about case numbers is I like to do what I call a bit of a summary statement or a wrap or roundup or whatever term you want to use. So, for example, this little group of post-its here around active cases, other countries with low numbers. I mean, how would you summarise that idea? What might be a nice paraphrase that would sum all that up?
I don't know, COVID status or something like that.
Yeah, COVID status. And now we've got a little heading that sums up this group of ideas. And, you know, sometimes, you know, what can be a bit interesting, you know, if you're getting very, very large numbers of replies, and this is what we did for Plan the Brisbane, is, you know, when we're talking about, you know, 100,000 pieces of information, you can actually start to get a feel. You can do like a qualitative and a quantitative process where you actually think, well, you know, we're actually getting like, say, several thousand responses that all kind of seem to be fitting under this label. So clearly this is an important trend for people. And, you know, something that I often notice is that, you know, when you have these very open-ended discussions, often it will boil down to maybe 10 core ideas that people are really talking about. And you just have to pull them out. Yeah, it's this one here. I'm just going to change that colour to green, so we've got like a nice little bit of segmentation. And then what we do, and what I might do if when we get pulled back in, is I'll tidy up the board a little bit for you, so it's all actually on the board. So if it sits in this area is called a frame in Miro, and if we put the information back in the frame, it actually exports quite nicely as a bit of a CSV file that you can do some further analysis on if you so choose. But you folk are just doing great. I can see another little group down here, which is around politics. And when our government tells me I can, well, that's charming. How would you round up that little group of ideas, do you think? I'll just call it political leadership for the time being. If you violently disagree, you're welcome to change it.
No idea what's going on.
Embrace the chaos, I say, Melissa. Orange, I'm not too sure who said that. Okay, now this COVID safe plan, look at COVID-19 strategies for each country. How do you feel this relates to this idea of COVID status? Do you think they're the same group of ideas or slightly different?
It could be seen as different because we do have different, like, whether countries are going for eradication, herd immunity, I don't know what we're doing, flatten the curve.
COVID strategy? Okay.
Yeah. I think there's lots of strategies, because one is a strategy about kind of responding to the bubble, whereas one is about how you've dealt with COVID initially.
Maybe it's COVID response, countries that are acting decisively and, with some clarity, whether it's early or later, they've made some efforts here. But maybe that's the way to look at it. How do you feel about that summary?
I think that works. Bernard, that's just me though. What does everyone else think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that works.
We're actually on, I'll just pull up my little menu again, but if you pull up the frames button just to the left here, we're actually on group 1, step 2. It's probably the easiest way to navigate to it. So to find that thing, if you just go to the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, you'll see 2 little arrows. You just pull them out, and the first icon is called frames. You just click it, and it brings up like a little, what looks like a PowerPoint presentation, and you just scroll down to see group 1, step 2, and that's where we are. Have you been able to do that?
Has everyone been able to find that now? Okay, silence is golden, I think, Bernard. So good work, guys.
Well, I can see some excellent effort going on here. Just going to see what's going on here. This little pairing down here, choose the most visited countries and assess COVID plan stats. Analysts of where Australia's travel the most. I mean, how do you describe that little pairing? Is that another group, do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of like destination desirability. I did that pairing because I thought it was kind of different to the other ones where it's all about like diplomatic implications and COVID case numbers. Whereas this one's kind of like, do we even want to travel there? Like, is it a desirable tourist destination?
I see it as something around there's a number of sticky notes there with the word relationship on it. And I wonder if they if that fits in there as well.
Yeah, possibly. Where did you spot those?
This one
So
here.
there's one, I'd like to move it, but all I've got is a hand, so I can't seem to grab anything.
If you go over to the left-hand thing, you see the select tool, and that'll toggle between a hand and an arrow if you just click on it. So if you click
Oh, there.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm moving that.
Yeah.
So that there's relationship there. So if I whack that just there, and then there's relationship here as well. And then this one here, I wonder if that makes sense.
And this is what I was saying before. In some ways, there's there can be multiple right answers. So what I might just do is put a sticky note that says relationships here. Just thing it. Because sometimes data can actually sit in two different spots. Information can sit in two different spots, which is why these summaries can be good. Now, I'll show you another little trick here that we can do, because I'm pretty sure we can actually tag. So I'm going to add a tag going COVID response. So we can actually meta tag in here now. So I'm just going to go through now, we've done a bit of grouping, and put some meta tags on them.
So then if something could sit in two groups, like our relationship with the destination could fit under relationships, could also go under political leadership.
That's correct.
Essentially. So do we duplicate that tab? Like, do we
So you can add one. So for example, I'll just click on here. As you see, when I click on it, brings up this little dialogue, and I can put the little tab on it. So we can call that one relationship, for example. And let's have a look at it. It's a bit more of a, okay, yeah, this is about, like when we say we thought it belonged to something else, I can then say it also belongs to, say, diplomatic,
political leadership.
Political leadership.
Okay, cool.
So now we have two meta tabs on it. So, which means that when we pull this out again, the CSV file, all those tabs carry with this each note. So we can actually then recategorize things multiple ways. By the way, that's really common that, you might get it's particularly when you get lots of information, or, if you're dealing with quite a few things, you quite a bit of information. It's often the case that someone's statement might fit in more than one group. Now, Amanda's asking us to return to the main session. If you just can click the blue, return to main session, you'll be returned. And when you return, I'm just going to clean up the mirror board, but I'll just wait. I'm just going to linger here to make sure that you exit safely. If you get lost somehow, just re-enter the meeting. Go back to the Zoom link, and I'll let you back in. And of course, if you have real problems, you can always call me on 0413 866 398.
Bernard, can I quickly ask a question like this, where it's like settled versus migrant population? Well, no, that's not really a good example. Something that's like this one, COVID strategy for Australia, where it's kind of ambiguous and you don't know whether it's talking about, COVID status or.
Yes, we admit we did have. Yeah,
he's a bit of a whiz.
Pretty good driver.
It's a bit of an unfair advantage, but
yeah.
That's just
come on, it was our contribution, Amanda. Yeah.
Okay, before we move on to some learnings, just how did you feel when you did it? What were some of the things that were flashing in your head? Aside from super fun, because I heard your group, you were having a lot of fun. What else when you were doing it?
I think dealing with the ambiguity of suggestions.
Yeah. You guys wrote those as well, so they're in your own words.
Yeah, but we're all in a very different. We're all in an extremely different environment. Like, on a personal level, I just had to text a friend and say, you can't communicate with your family like that, because Queensland and Melbourne, like, we may as well be light years away right now. But I also know that you, Amanda, you understand the landscape that we're working in, but it was very much, there was quite funny, because even for the task, there were a lot of questions about, hang on, are you driving this? Is someone else taking this line? What's this doing? Which was reflective of the environment that we are currently in, because it's not our customers.
So
Bree,
I reckon,
yeah, some really good points, Bree. I reckon we go a bit deeper into that sort of at the end.
because I reckon Bree's 2 slides ahead. So what I'm going to do, I know she is because I'm looking at it. So what I want to share with you is this. It was difficult because you're personally a part of it. So that personal, you're like living in the middle of COVID, and some of you are making decisions, and it's really hard to make decisions and analyze the data because your own cognitive biases are all over the place. So that was really hard. It was really hard to understand the ambiguity of what was really meant by things. And if we ask questions, that's how people respond. They're not trying to make it easy for us. They're just responding. I think some of you started to look at the images and started to have conversations around, what do these images mean? And so this is a real type of contribution that you can have. And so what I just want to share with you is, and this one is one, I'm not going to read through all of this because it was never intended to be, but it will be in the slide pack for you. And essentially, these are some key questions at each of those 5 stages. I'm going to highlight some of the things that made that task incredibly difficult for you. And one of the things is, for example, if you have a look in here, we don't really know what we want when we ask that question. And you're being asked to analyse without being very firm around what the purpose for the collection is. It then became really hard here because with data collection, if we were to do great data collection work, we need to inspire it by sharing information first. And in the world that we're in, the use of open data is powerful to give people the ability to make evidence-based decisions and opinions. And I think that's the bit we're really working hard on. We know that in Australia, there are governments doing this now and revealing more and making it easier to access. Then there's the bit we spoke of before the activity, which is around organising and cleaning. And then some of this language is confusing. The language is even more confusing on step 4 one because I think it's really hard. I wanted to go to data analysis. The bit is, how do you even approach it? And so do you approach it with looking at the words first, or do you apply a computer software program to it? And group 1, I'm going to have a look at group 1, step 2. I'm going to stop sharing that. I'm going to share my screen with you. And what you're going to see is this. We have a category of, Bernard, do you want to talk to this? Because you did this and I'll be making this up.
Sure, no problem. Yes, so I'll just go to my mirror board so I can see it better. Actually, it wasn't myself, it was actually the group. We actually just did a little facilitated conversation. So what we did is we looked at all the post-it notes and started to think about which ones were similar to each other. And then putting them under this idea of themes. So for example, one theme was around relationships, particularly with the destination. Another theme was whether those different places had a particular, how they were responding to COVID. Another one was reflecting about our own political leadership. The first one was actually identified was really about, well, is there an economic benefit with working within that bubble? Mm-hmm. And the idea of also, being cognizant of that destination's COVID status, so we're not creating risk in the community. So that's just a little a wrap of where we were.
Thanks, buddy. And I think that looks pretty neat, actually. Is it group? Well, look, group 2 found the text tool. And so they've applied some headings in a text tool. And you'll notice something strange. You'll see that we've got entirely different headings and different structures. And this is part of the challenge of the data analysis. And so they've done a great job. Cases, strategy, economy, planning and policy. And so what I'm going to do is to say to you, look, what do we do? We've got, and I won't go to the third group just because I haven't got time to sort of get through, but what do we do when we've got different analyses? And so I want to give you some tips on the analysis. I think the first thing we need to do is recognise the cognitive biases. You can't do anything about them, but you need to recognise them and account for them. I know in our beautiful place of work, to ourselves, we will have the same set of data, which is reviewed by multiple people in isolation, and then their findings are brought back together and they're compared, and there needs to be a justification and a rationale for everything. So that's one measure that we use to do it. There's other measures. There's always an important part, I think, to have that measure of independence or separation from decision making to the data. So if you are making the decision and you're doing the data analysis, I'm fairly sure that it's going to introduce an additional type of bias, a confirmation bias. So I'm going to look for stuff that confirms the bias that I have. And that's a real danger because you didn't even have that here. So there's got to be some kind of way that you can have that separation. The third part is to think about, if you're using computer software, what is the algorithm for the data analysis? So how are you measuring sentiment, content, how are you actually understanding the content, how are you finding themes, and how are you doing segmentation? For us, we will always use a computer and humans, and sometimes we will write algorithms to analyse the qualitative data. But that goes through a series of testing before it's actually used on information. And what we have found are a couple of things for you to think about. And one of which is, when you're looking for themes, think about proximity of words. So, or words that have dual meaning. So for example, the word park is a really challenging word to analyse, because a park could mean a kid's park, or it could mean what do you reckon?
It could be to park it.
The what?
It could just be to park it. Like drop it, like leave it.
Absolutely, could mean absolutely.
A car park.
Perfect.
Let him have it.
There's so many words like this that have a dual meaning. And often it's when you do the analysis and that dual meaning word is in a certain proximity to another associated word that you can start to make sense of it. So that's sort of getting into the nitty gritty of saying, is my computer actually spitting out something that is useful, or is it just putting all parks together when they actually have totally different meanings? Just remember parks. you'll never make a mistake. Yeah. The fourth one, computers plus humans. We often use computers first because it doesn't have that emotional overlay that we experienced when we chose the travel bubble for COVID. I mean, it was an intentional one because we knew you'd have a tie to it. So we're doing computers first allows us to look for potential top themes before we apply a human eye. The next little one to think about is consistent labels. So we all use these terrible terms like significant, major, minor. They have very different meanings. And so it's just agreeing to the level that it is. So I don't know, is significant 90% of people agreeing? Is support, strongly support, or support and strongly support? If it's on a Likert scale, a 10-point Likert scale, at which point do we demonstrate support? And these are things that you just need to decide and to put into your report and have that as a rationale and a justification, so that if people looked at this again, they would get the same kind of result. The last little one is to think about a data structure and the variables. I will leave a slide in here to show you what that means, but just have a little look at it later. It's an extract from the data report. And the last little one I want to leave you with, and just scraping in on time, is this. Getting from the design phase to the reporting phase. And I would say, when you're setting up your data collection, have some sort of a process to make it easy for you at the end of the process. And what I'm not saying is do a survey. I'm not saying do a quantitative survey. But for example, if we were to take, as we've done with young people, and we've taken visuals, got them to choose tiles that relate to a certain topic, and they're choosing those as priorities, built on a map, those tiles have a meta tag on the back. So we've done the tagging process in advance. The kids don't know it's just a code. They're choosing their own image. They're placing it on a map. And then if they make their own images, we only have to deal with those ones they draw. And so what it means is very quickly we can turn it over, we can put our little cards in, our visuals already coded, and then we simply count, put the code in, and we're done. And what it does is it reduces the time. So that's an example of having an easy process for collection and analysis. You can build your own analysis tool. You can buy off the shelf. The dot point 3 is, I think, in engagement, in particular, you need to think about reach versus contribution. Reach does not equal an engaged community. It just means they've looked at something. And generally in the profession, it's not considered, like likes or views is not considered a measure of a contribution. And the last one is, when you do the reporting, you want to make it understandable and relatable and defensible.